Hi guys, this is gsn.com and I'm here with a review of the Bluboo S3 handset. So we don't usually review handsets like this every day. It's a gigantic battery phone with a dual camera, possibly the biggest battery phone we've ever tested here at gsn.com. So it's an 8500 mAh device. It's available in gold or black. It's a 6-incher. It's sort of a power bank phone, and last I checked it was $169.99 on banggood.com. Now it could be priced at an even more affordable rate. You can also get it on several other sites. It gravitates around 170, 150, 130 even dollars. So it was launched in the spring of 2018. It's a giant, so let's talk about the design. It's a phone that's made of metal and it feels like it has an extra battery glued to the back side. It measures 11.6 millimeters in thickness, weighs a crazy 282 grams, and is the heaviest phone we've ever tested. Now it's got a pretty weird placement of the power button. I'm used to seeing it here, even, but very rarely on the left side. Also not very comfy buttons. They're a bit on the as you can see, they're a bit finicky and they make sounds, and they're also not exactly comfy. Anyways, it looks pretty interesting and trendy with this backside. Feels like a chainmail armor. It also may feel a bit too old school for some people, maybe a bit antique, maybe something like 2012, something like that. Anyways, it looks a bit cheap with this chainmail texture. Depends on your tastes. At least the grip is good. That I can guarantee. The grip is very good, very solid, and solid is also the build. It's a sturdy phone for sure. It's a brick that could break windows, windshields, and more. The facade tends to get scratched and smudged easily, so be careful with that. And seen from the front, it's actually a pretty modern phone in format. Looks a bit like maybe something like a newer LG handset, LG G6 or even the G7, so not bad, and actually pretty comfortable to use in landscape for movies and gaming. Still a very, very big phone. Now when it comes to the display, it's an IPS LCD, this one, and it's got a Full HD Plus resolution. It's made by Sharp actually, so the Sharp made panel is a 6-inch 5-point touch, 2160 over 1080 pixels, 18:9 aspect. It's got pretty narrow bezels and curved corners actually. And now let's go to the actual viewing experience and see what happens here. Now we go to the device folders, go download, and use our typical playback sample. Here we go. Okay, so if you want to properly fit it on the screen, you may want to use another app, maybe something like MX Player or something else. So let's actually download it and see what happens. Here we go, MX Player, install. That's reasonably fast, I would say, because as you saw before, the integration of the app on the screen was a bit weird. And the integration of the video was a bit weird. I'm going to opt for MX Player and go here, and that's more like it. Finally. Okay, so now we have the full screen to enjoy, and we're dealing here with some pretty well calibrated colors. The curved corners help with immersivity. There's still some extra black borders, which I'm not a very big fan of. You can notice it, some extra black outline, not a big fan of it. Pretty okay brightness and medium contrast, but also wide view angles. Okay, we're done with that. Let's try to go back. Okay, bit of spam in the app, and let's see what results we got with our test of the screen. So this is the pixel arrangement. It's actually RGB stripes pixels, and we also did a brightness test, and we achieved these values with a top-up level of 395 lux units. It's no 400 lux, so it's just okay. It beats the Huawei Mate 10 Pro and the Nokia 6. It scores below the Ulefone Power and Yumi Max. Now when it comes to the settings of the screen, things are pretty generous, I have to say. So we go here, We got a display, we got a navigation bar, LED, brightness level, adaptive brightness, sleep, screensaver, font size, display size, and mirror vision with an entire series of sub settings. We got a picture mode with standard, vivid, or user mode. If you select user mode, you're going to have contrast, saturation, picture brightness, sharpness, color, temperature, dynamic contrast, blue light defender, and more to tweak, but I suggest you keep things standard. Okay, now that we're done with the aspect and keeping the brightness in check, the screen is reasonable, I would say, for this price tag. Let's go to the other hardware, and I'm talking here about the CPU for starters. This one is an octa-core MediaTek MT6750T CPU, and it's clocked at 1.5 GHz, and it's got a Mali GPU, the Mali T860, accompanied by 4 GB of RAM. Now, aside from the 4 GB of RAM, we also have 64 GB of storage and a micro SD card slot, and luckily the phone does not suffer from lag. So basically, no matter what we did on the device, we did not encounter lag on it. We installed a bunch of apps, we played a bunch of games, and had a bunch of apps overlapped. No lag, no problem. It's okay in use. I played Dragon Ball Z title only, Dragon Ball Z Legends, also played Riptide GP Renegade, our typical benchmark game, so let's see how it's handled. Riptide GP Renegade with tweakable graphics, and be advised, very powerful acoustics, so let's turn them down a little bit and let's opt for a quick race. Keep in mind the volume is pretty low right now, and in spite of that you can actually hear everything. While the game may look pretty okay, responds well to my commands, has a pretty nice frame rate. You have to know that the device tends to overheat a bit, quite a bit actually. Okay, nice effects, and the area where it overheats is actually here on the frame, and it's actually a powerful overheating. It skips above 40 degrees Celsius if I were to estimate. Now, leaving aside estimations, we go to the benchmarks. We did those, and let's see what came out of that. We got the screenshots here. You have to know that we did the full works. We did Antutu, Nenamark, and so forth. This is Antutu, and this is the test we did. In this Antutu 7 test, we scored below the Nokia 5, but also above the AllView V3 Viper. Now, we also did the Antutu 6 one, and in this test, we were able to beat the Bluboo S3 and the Galaxy A3 2016, but score below the Xperia L1 and the Nokia 5. We also did the Geekbench 4, as you saw, and in the multi-core test, we beat Nubia N1, the ZTE Nubia N1, and the Motorola Moto G5, but scored below the Nokia 5, for example, and Huawei Nova and the Huawei Mate 10 Lite. We also did a bunch of slingshot tests. Those are focused on the graphics, and in slingshot we were able to beat the Huawei Honor 7 and the TP-Link Nefos X1, but score below the Xperia XA and the Nokia 5 and the Motorola Moto M. These are poor levels. I would say even for this price tag, we're at about the level of 2015, 2016 maybe, and the mid-rangers from those years, not the flagships. Now, if you want to talk about the temperatures, I have a bunch of bad news. In benchmarks it was okay, 34.5 degrees Celsius, but in games like Riptide, no, 42.4 degrees Celsius, and it can go much higher. Be advised, when playing games, you should take some break every once in a while, because this area gets very hot. I've been playing Dragon Ball Z, I know what I'm talking about. Now, on the battery front, we have a gigantic achievement here, 8500 mAh OTG charge. You can charge other devices, 1 ampere output, and on paper we have the promise of a week of functioning. They promise 20 hours of video, 36 hours of music, 6 days of moderate use, 42 days of standby. Everything is a huge and impressive promise. Now, the promise aside, let's see what we achieved with this device. So the video playback time was actually pretty impressive, 17 hours and 49 minutes. It's great. It's the 5th placed phone all time, but honestly I expected more for such a bulky device. It beats the AllView P8 Energy Pro, but scores below the Motorola Moto Z Play and the AllView P9 Energy, not to mention the AllView P8 Energy, which is a bit of a champ for a while now. So even though the result is very good, I've seen better from smaller battery phones. Another impressive result, PCMAR continuous usage, 14 hours 29 minutes. It's very solid, it's excellent, but it's once again the 3rd spot. It's placed below the fantastic AllView P8 Energy and the Asus Zenfone Max, but it scores above the AllView P9 Energy, and even the Xperia X-A2 Ultra, which held its own. And actually the charging is not bad, a mere 3 hours and 7 minutes for an 8000 mAh battery, not bad. The 3 hours and 7 minutes is actually the equal of the Xperia XZ Premium, and it's better than the iHunt Hero. Now after 1 hour of charging, you're at 46%. In my book, this is success, this is a good result. Now when it comes to the settings and the options, you got standby, intelligent power saving, you got your battery saver, you got your optimization. Once again, as far as I know, you should be able to juice up other phones with the bundled accessories, maybe even juice up more than one at a time. It's a great phone, but somehow I wanted even more from its bulky allure. On the acoustics front, if you look at the bottom, you can see two sets of speakers, where there's actually one. This is just for the sake of symmetry, so let's forget about this. This is the actual set of speakers. They're too easy to cover in landscape. As you can see, I'm totally covering it up. And let's see what's happening when we turn on the music. We're using Google Play Music here, and we got the stock equalizer. We go here, you got your options here, you got equalizer, you got genre settings, you got 5 custom channels, you got bass boost, surround sound, etc. Now let's actually listen to some tunes. So here we go. Let's listen to this one. Okay, so you get the gist of it. Okay, now some conclusions. So what we can see here, what we're dealing with here is a pretty high volume, actually pretty impressive, a very punchy bass, not bad high notes, also not a bad voice, and by the way, we also have FM radio here somewhere. Now we also did some decibel meter tests. We have a special instrument to measure the decibels, and the results were actually not bad. 93.3 decibels were achieved at the front and the back of the phone using our typical sample. This beats the Nokia 7 Plus, the Galaxy S8. It scores below the Nokia 5 and Xperia L1, and in the other test, which involves the gaming, 100.3 decibels, once again not bad. It's solid, it beats the Huawei Mate 10 Pro and the LG Q6, but scores below the Motorola Moto E4. And if you want a bit of extra, you're going to go to the settings, and let's see what we have here. Storage, sound, and you got sound enhancement with BS loudness. Overall pretty okay acoustics. Too bad we didn't get to play with any sort of serious and high-end headphones. Now, when it comes to the camera, things sound crazy on paper. So this is the dual camera with a dual tone flash. It's a combo of 21 and 5 megapixels, which sounds once again pretty crazy in resolution. So 21 plus 5 megapixels, dual tone flash, 13 megapixel at the front here. These cameras are actually made by Samsung, which is not bad. The interface is a bit on the stock front. It's, to be honest, kind of laggy, kind of simple. You got HDR, you got slow motion, picture in picture, and even a sort of bokeh mode plus a bunch of filters. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on, here we go, the actual results, the actual captures. And the one thing that I can say about this camera, one aspect that defines it, is the lack of constants. So exactly at the moment you think you have a great shot, you will take a blurry and disappointing shot. So it's not constant, it's inconstant. So you can take a great shot and then you can take a very poor one. These are actually excellent close-ups, one of the highlights of the camera. Not very good bokehs, by the way. The blur is totally messed up. Sometimes even the focus is a bit weird here, as you can see, but otherwise some shots are quite great. I see a lot of potential, but then I also get blurry shots. I'm not very sure. The selfies could have been a bit better. I would say they're just okay. I've seen better on other mid-range phones. My face texture is okay, the color is okay, but I wanted more focus on my skin and maybe a better background. By the way, sometimes the colors here feel a bit unrealistic, a bit over-processed. That's the vibe. And sometimes I feel a bit of a halo on top of the images, a bit of juxtaposition of something like a filter, a digital filter of sorts. One of the best things about the phone, aside from its excellent close-ups, let's see, it's the zoom actually. So we go here, we start zooming in, again and again, and actually quite approaching the level of a Nokia 7 Plus, so actually not bad. The panorama was a bit small at 6384 over 880 pixels. We also took a bunch of landscape shots here and there, and once again it was a mixed bag. Sometimes it was excellent, other times it was underwhelming, so not something you can bet on all the time. With an update, with a software update, it may actually get rid of the problems. So it's about the level of the Huawei P9 Lite, the first generation, on the level of the LG Q6 or maybe below, or the Nokia 6 or the Nokia 5. That's the vibe. We'll remain with the good close-ups, nice landscape shots and nice colors, plus pretty decent zoom. These are daytime shots. We have nighttime shots as well, so let's go and check them out. Here things are quite blurry at times. The flash felt a bit poor, does not exactly bring something extra to the table. It lights things up but also makes them a bit blue. Once again, the close-ups are solid, so if you're looking for good close-ups at night, you'll have them. Things get a bit yellow, but they're within range. Not exactly very impressive. Once again, the level of a Nokia 5, Nokia 6, or even below them, we have pretty big streetlight halos with artifacts around them. Not a constant camera for sure. The fact that every fifth or every fourth photo is blurred is a bit of a drawback. But if you're willing to stabilize it, hold it properly and be patient, you'll get maybe decent results, something at the level of a $100 phone. Now, as far as the video capture is concerned, we also have those kind of samples, so let's check them out. So we go to the camera, and sadly we're dealing with my least favorite format. It's 3GPP, Full HD, 30 frames per second, 70 mega per second. So here we go. This is one of the first videos. And I have to admit that I was surprised by the microphone. It caught excellently my voice and the one of my mates standing around and talking about the dirty water in front of me. The zoom is rather poor. The image is also shaky, so electronic stabilization doesn't help. The exposure change is a bit odd and the colors feel a bit washed out. In general, the video capture was washed out and feels like a wave of white was on top of it. Still, the microphone was actually excellent. It takes a long while to fix the exposure properly, as you just saw here. Clarity is decent. There's also a bit of burn from the sun. And sometimes the Full HD capture looks like simply HD, which is certainly not a compliment, since Full HD is supposed to look like Full HD, not just HD. Here we get a solid dose of blurriness. Takes a while to properly recover. And the dynamic range is very poor at the top side. Not a big fan of 3GPP indeed. It's a bit of a letdown, shaky, poor details in the distance, but great voice, so if the microphone is the one that interests you, it should be okay for you. So these are the daytime video captures. The low light video captures are even worse. They're moving in frames, so we got a low frame rate and a low bit rate. As you can see, things are moving in frames, frame by frame, big streetlight halos. And also some ghosting and motion blur, so for sure not the best camera to use during the night time. Somehow the clarity and the colors were, I would say, decent, but this ghosting and motion blur and frame by frame action is a problem. You have to appreciate that there are no odd hues, no purple, no pink, no orange, at least there's that. Now that we're done with the camera, let's talk about other aspects such as the web browser. We got Chrome pre-installed here. And let's see how fast it is to load up gsmdome.com. So here we go, loading up GSM Dome. I would say reasonably fast, although the benchmarks are rather poor, Velamo and so forth. This is the stock keyboard. It's got swipe, it's quite comfy to use. And now we move on to connectivity. So one of the best things about connectivity is the fact that we have an USB Type-C port at the bottom. Oddly enough, there's no audio jack. As you can see, no trace of audio jack. On the good news side, we are getting NFC here, so there's that. This is a dual SIM dual standby phone with 4G LTE, 2 nano SIM card slots, or one of them can also be used for the micro SD. There's Bluetooth 4.0, there's Wi-Fi A, B, G, and AC, GPS, there's USB OTG, Wi-Fi calling, and the calls have a decent volume, I would say medium volume, and the microphone was pretty solid throughout the experience. Now, when it came to the tests that we did on the connectivity, We used good old speed test, and these are the results we achieved. Top level of 61.7 mega per second in 4G downloads, 46.2 mega per second in 4G uploads, so we're doing fine. On Wi-Fi there's 90.6 and 21.5. Things are just okay, there's no record breaking here. I've seen 100 mega per second on 4G, I've seen 300 on Wi-Fi, so I would say we're just fine. Now on the software front, you're clearly seeing a very clean Android 7.0 Nougat here, which is very typical, very stock and very vanilla. So Bluboo hasn't customized the phone in any manner. They left it as is. Too bad we don't have Oreo, but we do have multitasking, so you can do multitasking via this carousel. You can close all the apps with that button. You can also do split screen, so I can use the photos, browse among them, and also do web browsing at the same time by moving around here, and that's what multitasking is all about. Now, if you keep the home screen pressed, you're here. Wallpapers, widgets and settings, widgets, all of them stock, nothing fancy, nothing out of the ordinary. On the home screens, we got the leftmost one for the Google feed and other regular things. As you can see, no lag, that's the best thing here. Drop down is notifications and quick settings. These are the quick settings. These are some of the options and settings. All of them are typical, except for the fact we got here the full screen mode, which lets you fit the app properly to this unusual aspect. Got the screen assistant, which is a floating widget of sorts. Let's see what else. We got the touch letters, which are basically symbols. You're going to draw letters on the screen, do a bunch of gestures, double tap, flip, screenshots and more. And finally, there's the fingerprint scanner with a 12-step setup. Let's actually use it. And sadly, it's not the fastest in the world. The setup is okay. This fingerprint scanner is pretty comfy to the touch, although a bit flat. 12-step setup, we are done, and now here we go. As you can see, it had a bit of lag between my touch and the actual unlocking, so that's a bit of a bummer. Now, as far as the pre-installed apps are concerned, everything is stock, vanilla and standard. I counted actually 25 apps, no bloatware. You got your calculator, calendar, Chrome, clock, contacts, downloads, Drive, Duo, file manager, FM radio, Gmail, maps, and the only extra is maybe the super power saver, which leaves you with these core modes, and that's about it. The super power saver is important to remember. Okay, now it's time for the verdict for this ultra affordable phone. So this battery phone, let's see the pros and cons. On the pro side, it's got an excellent battery, very solid. It's got a cute facade, let's face it, looks like a more modern device. It's certainly a top 3 battery, and it's got a pretty okay grip in my view. Other than that, the display is actually not bad for a mid-range phone or a low mid-range phone or whatever area you want to fit it in. Great microphone, okay acoustics, nice connectivity, clean OS and no lag. Those are the pluses. On the cons, the back side is pretty ugly. It's a hugely beefy, fat and heavy phone. There's a serious overheating of the frame, and the camera at the back, let's face it, is rather poor. It just has Android Nougat, which doesn't cut it anymore. It's got an old CPU and GPU. Even for this price tag, we wanted a bit more. Now, in the end, this truly remains a battery phone, and I'm fancying it more for the ability to charge other phones through its port here. So you're basically buying a sort of power bank that can play movies and music. That's what you get, and it also takes some mediocre pictures. As I said before, the camera is one of the biggest drawbacks because it doesn't impress us in any aspect. So a power bank that gives you music, video, and sometimes some games. Forget about the camera, but you can juice up other devices with it. The price revolves around $130, $150. It's reasonable, but beware of the overheating and the camera letdown. This has been the presentation and review of the Bluboo S3 here at gsmdom.com. Bye bye.